The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon. My name is Jen Saunders. I'm a Senior Program Officer with the National Alliance to End Homelessness, and I'd like to welcome you to our webinar series on rapid rehousing. We're so delighted to have our speakers today talking about rapidly rehousing households with zero income. A few logistics before we begin. All the lines are on mute with the exception of the speakers. We'll be taking questions at the end of the presentation, so please feel free to submit questions at any time during the webinar in the question box. We're extending the webinar to about an hour and a half to give more time for presentations and questions. And as we've had over 1,300 people register for today's webinar, we're not likely to get through everybody's questions. So we hope to be compiling them and releasing a document that summarizes some of the more common questions. We'll be posting the slides and audio immediately following the webinar on our website, endhomelessness.org. Let me just quickly start out by telling you about our work at the Alliance. We're a national organization committed to preventing and ending homelessness in the U.S. At the Alliance, we identify policy solutions and promote them to the administration, to Congress, and anyone who will listen. We have a capacity building team that goes out to communities to help them create better systems, and we provide data and information to educate opinion leaders about homelessness and housing as a solution. And most importantly, we learn from providers in the field about what is working and what is not working in order to inform our work. In terms of our agenda today, we have a lot of awesome speakers from Homefull in Dayton, Ohio, and Friendship Place in Washington, D.C. They'll be giving you some strategies about how to successfully, rapidly rehouse people with no income. Before we begin, I'm just going to quickly give you an overview of rapid rehousing and the core components, as I know most of you are familiar with the intervention. So rapid rehousing is designed to help people and individuals and families quickly exit homelessness and return to permanent housing. It's offered without preconditions, and the resources and services provided are typically tailored to the unique needs of the household. The core components of a rapid rehousing program include housing identification, rent and move-in assistance, and case management services. And while a rapid rehousing program must have all three core components available, it is not required that a single program provide all three services, nor that a household utilize them all. We have a lot of resources on our website, endhomelessness.org, that go into more detail about the core components, so I would encourage you to visit our website. And with that, I will turn it over to Tina Patterson, who is CEO of Homefull in Dayton.
Good morning. Thank you so much for, actually it's afternoon now, and in Dayton, Ohio, it's a sunny, almost 50 degrees, so thank you for having us, and we're really excited. We've been hearing now for a while that this is getting to be a large webinar, and I keep jokingly saying that I'm only talking to one person. So, so interestingly enough, and I'm going to tell you now that I actually cannot even see the slides any longer, Jen. I've been sending some emails, so I don't know what happened, but they fell off. So I'm going to go ahead and get started from a hard copy until I see them pop back up. Anyhow, so a little bit about Homefull first. So if you looked at Homefull, there are three different business lines of Homefull. The first being Homefull Services, and really that's probably what we are most known for. We're a COA-accredited Medicaid reimbursed services provider throughout the whole continuum of our services. We provide prevention, diversion, coordinated entry, emergency shelter, rapid rehousing, and permanent supportive housing, and that is through all of our programs. We can provide the Medicaid reimbursed services. Then in our other division, we have, it is Homefull Solutions, and in that program, it is really kind of our workforce development program where we provide opportunities for people who we serve throughout all of our programs to gain jobs and experience in the workforce and so forth. So for those folks in that particular program, it is our urban agriculture. We have micro farms and where we garden and actually sell our produce. We operate markets, farmers markets, where we can provide EBT opportunities for people with low income as we improve food access throughout Dayton and Montgomery County. Additionally, we do property management, maintenance, and landscaping, and you'll hear a little bit about what that is in terms of what we provide and how that links to our programs and helping us increase employment opportunities for folks as well. And then our third line of our organization is Homefull Innovations, which is a consulting, training, technical assistance, and Homefull Academy, where we provide CEUs and opportunities for our staff, and then for other folks throughout the country. Actually, we work with in helping them build their capacity as well. Next slide, Jen.
Got it.
Thanks. So a little bit about Dayton, Ohio. As I said, I think it's 50 degrees outside today and supposed to be close to 70. So, but we are actually in the Midwest. So our population is about 145,000, and that's in the urban core. Our average median annual income is about $28,174. Our unemployment rate is about 4.5%. And we have about 35% of folks who are living in poverty. The average apartment rent, and I know some folks, depending on where you are going to say, wow, is probably about $685. And then our apartment vacancy rate is somewhere around the 5.5%, and some of that changes quarterly, but as of now, it's about 5.5%. And just to give you a kind of a proximity of where Dayton, Ohio is, we're about 55 miles north of Cincinnati, and then about 65 miles from Columbus as well. We're right on the exchange of two major interstates, and why I say that is because I also say that we're kind of a hub, Dayton being right at 70 and 75, so we get a lot of folks from all over that kind of land in Dayton, Ohio. Next slide, Jen. So the homeless systems, are you there? I'm sorry, because I can't see it still.
I know, I'm sorry, it's up. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to trust that it is, and I'm going to keep talking. So the homeless system snapshot in Dayton, Ohio, a little bit. Our point in time, and this is still based because we haven't finalized our point in time that was just done a couple of weeks ago. Our point in time, we have about 564 sheltered folks, 40 unsheltered, for a total of 604. And again, this is really to kind of put into the perspective of the number of folks that we're currently seeing in our entire system. So annual counts, that kind of looks at, we have 3,420 households for 4,613 persons. Our housing inventory count, I think this is always kind of important so that people know kind of what it is we're looking at, and this is probably our last housing inventory count as well. Emergency shelter, we have 410 beds, transitional housing 205, permanent supportive housing 1,172, rapid rehousing 155, and you'll see kind of what that looks like in a minute. And then our total year-round beds equal 1,942. Our collaborative applicant is Montgomery County and the Homeless Solutions Policy Board, and they also manage our centralized wait list for placements into our housing programs. We've been doing coordinated entry for quite some time, and would like to say that we're now at the point of reevaluating our coordinated entry and making sure that we're really looking at best practice models and kind of continuing to stay ahead of the curve. But our COC in general is very structured, very engaged, been around for quite some time, and really have placed an emphasis on housing and ending homelessness, so much so that Dayton, Ohio officially, and I think we're one of the 31 counties or communities that have officially ended veteran homelessness as of November of 2016. Next slide. So for us, rapid rehousing populations, you know, and as I wrote this, I was thinking really I could say everybody, but it is, we provide rapid rehousing for singles, for families, for veterans, for young adults, and victims of domestic violence. So it really is, we look at rapid rehousing as a real tool, and we're not just specific to one population, we serve the multiple. It is really in our coordinated entry, if you are a rapid rehousing in our scored after a front door assessment, then we're going to serve you. So next slide, Jen. So the rapid rehousing overview for 2016, in total, we served 230 households. And those are 4 programs. And again, as I said, that the populations we serve is pretty diverse. And our program funding is COC funded, ESG funded, some local funds as well. And we continue, we actually got a bonus project, so we'll be serving even more of that in 2017 as we got a new bonus project for our community as well. So in that 230 households, 74 were families, 32% have zero income at entry, and 99% were very low income, and most of those are under a $20,000 annual income. So again, we are saying that our rapid rehousing works for people with zero income and very low income, which is really kind of what we're talking about. Additionally to that, just as anecdotal, 46% of the folks of those 230 households report mental illness, 43% report substance abuse, 29% reported a recent incident of domestic violence. And in general, our rapid rehousing has provided about $2,300 of an average financial assistance per household. And then our average length of assistance, and I say the financial assistance, is about 5 months. Next slide. So what was the impact of our rapid rehousing? So for us, we've started to look at making sure that we're targeting our resources for any long stayers in our shelter system that have been currently homeless, and making sure that, that we are really targeting resources for people, and again, without regard to whether they have income, but really as a way to make sure that we're focusing on reducing the length of overall stay that somebody's experiencing homelessness. So we had a 14% decrease in singles that had been homeless for over 200 days, and a 38% decrease in singles over 100 days. Our return to homelessness in our program, and this is the 24-month period, is about 12%. And to be honest, there is no real distinction between people who had income and people who didn't have income in terms of whether those had a greater likelihood to return to homelessness or not. We did, as I said, ended veteran homelessness. 70% have increased income from entry to exit, which I think is a very important thing to note as well. And then ultimately, you know, one of the other things is it's not just about the fact that we have increased a significant amount of folks in terms of increasing their income, but 28 have continued to increase their income at follow-up and or our exits. So again, I think for us, we wanted to make sure that our impact into our entire, not just our organization in Homefull, but actually our whole system has truly seen its impact of rapid rehousing. And we continue to kind of grow, which is why our bonus project in our COC this year was also a new rapid rehousing project. So it works, I think, is the bottom line that many of us think about. Why do you do rapid rehousing? It is a cost-effective tool to end homelessness. It is a quick way to end homelessness, and it's important to embrace it, I think, is the key piece that we want to keep talking about. Next slide, please.
Sorry, I'm having some technical issues myself. Hopefully, Tina, can you see the screen now?
I do now. Well, somebody brought in a laptop, so I'm looking. I'm good.
Okay. Sorry about that, everyone.
That's okay. So strategies for housing people with no income, which is ultimately what we're really kind of talking about today. So first and foremost, I think I want to make sure that rapid rehousing isn't going to eliminate poverty, and I think that's really hard for people to wrap their minds around, is saying, how do I house somebody that's so low income or has no income, when I worry about, are they going to be able to succeed once the assistance stops, are they going to return to homelessness, those kinds of questions, and how do you set somebody up that's going to ultimately be paying a large percentage of their income on rents. And the reality is that, this rapid rehousing strategies aren't about eliminating poverty. It is about eliminating and reducing homelessness. And so you kind of have to get kind of in your mindset that it really is about housing people first, and recognizing that there are many people, particularly homeless folks, that have lived in poverty pretty much their entire life. And for us, we're not going to say that, gone are those days that says, I've got to get you ready for housing. You are homeless, you're ready for housing. And I'm not going to fix you in a shelter and then I'm going to house you. It is, I'm going to put you into housing, and we're going to continue to build you up and provide supports so that you don't return to homelessness. Again, I don't want people to think we're eradicating poverty through a rapid rehousing program. But we are eliminating homelessness and reducing it significantly. So for us, it is, I've been doing this for about 22 years now, and that whole kind of concept of getting people ready for housing has been, there used to be, pre-treatment groups you had to go to. You had to do so many classes before we would provide you assistance. Well, now we're saying that we're getting rid of those, more of that traditional kind of social work mentality of fixing people while you're in front of me, and saying, now we want to be about housing. We want to focus our efforts on what is it going to take to, one, get you into housing, and two, keep you housed. Not that we're saying you don't deal with the other issues that are coming, but again, the first way to recovery is taking care of those basic human needs, which is, let's find housing, let's get you housed. And that becomes a big priority. And that's a different, mindset for licensed social workers who said, but I get nervous about these kinds of things. Additionally, I think we also have to kind of change the expectations with clients from almost the beginning, recognizing that, that our expectations is that you're going to work towards finding housing. There are people that get very nervous, is, wait, I have no income. How do I sign a lease when I have no income? So not only do we have to build capacity or understanding with landlords, but we actually have to build trust in consumers to say, I can sign a lease right now with no income. Yes, because we're going to continue to provide you the supports that you need. We're going to link you to everything you need. That's a different mindset. So we spend a lot of time focusing our efforts on really building relationships with landlords, letting them understand, but we have to also change kind of the culture with the clients, and we really do that from beginning. And we do that in a way that's, again, that non-traditional kind of support services, where we're not going to be talking about all of those traditional kind of social work, kind of, how do you feel today, all of that kind of stuff. You have to figure out how to blend that model of being supportive and providing services in a housing-focused kind of manner. And again, making sure that our clients understand that the best place to overcome your mental illness and start to focus on addiction disorders is in your own home. Again, the other strategies are that our case managers are strong negotiation skills. And I use the word negotiation skills versus sales, because they're actually having to sell to landlords, to the client, all of those kinds of things, on this is not your traditional homeless person. This is how we are running a program that is about supporting people in housing kind of stuff. So again, a little bit of those non-traditional kind of skill sets that you look for. And then on top of that, again, while we say we're housing focused, we are about employment and we are about increasing income focused. So they're not mutually exclusive. If we're saying we're providing you assistance for 5 to 6 months, then we're going to be saying, how do you intend to provide the rent for yourself when we walk away? And I think those become kind of the big expectations, discussions that our case managers are having from the beginning with both clients and landlords to a certain extent. And then I think I've said this probably over and over and over again anytime I present or I talk, is the key strategy for operating an effective rapid rehousing program is flexibility. You know, don't operate a rapid rehousing program where you think everybody fits into a perfect box of financial assistance for 3 months or graduated assistance for this much. It is being able to tailor your program to the individual person so that you can actually say, what does this person need to be successful versus this is what the program design looks like. Your program design needs to be flexible. All right, you want to move to the next slide? Thank you. So in terms of our strategies with landlords, because our strategies to house the person in general, and then we look at the strategies for landlords. And I know that everybody wants to know what's the key thing to getting landlords to take people with zero income. Well, the first and foremost is that it is a clear communication, open communication with landlords, no surprises. You don't try to sell them on something that first off isn't the way the program's going to operate. You have to build some trust, and the best way to build that trust is to communicate often. I always say we look at landlords as a client as well, and so we feel like we're responsible to both the client we're putting into the housing and to the landlord that we're working with as well. So if you value both your client and your landlord equally, you're not going to be losing landlords, and you're not going to have to figure out how to negotiate things with the landlords. You're going to have landlords that are going to be happy to work with you, and certainly much more open to taking additional rapid rehousing clients. Again, we always say constant new landlord recruitment. You cannot say, oops, we're at capacity, I need no new landlords. I can't imagine anybody has enough landlords to do rapid rehousing that they finally stop saying we need new landlords. We are constantly looking for new landlords. We also look outside of the traditional kind of methods, whether that's the newspaper, or Craigslist, all those kinds of opportunities to find him. We actually developed a relationship with the local University of Dayton, where we have AmeriCorps semester of service people that is constantly just looking for landlords. They spend an entire semester recruiting landlords, vetting them, educating them on our program, that kind of stuff. And so, and again, the best way to do this is to be open and honest about the program and the expectations. The other thing is you do have to let them know that you're not taking this person without supports. The reality is that landlords are renting to people unknown anyhow. It's only what a background check gives them. But at least with our program, they're getting support services. There's an additional person to contact when they have issues, that kind of stuff. And I think that's, when we're talking about people that are already operating homes that are, or housing that is affordable, they're probably already leasing and renting to low-income folks. Our catch is that they come with support services and an additional resource. And even after our financial support has stopped, we still have landlords that reach back out to us and says, hey, this tenant you put in last year is struggling and so forth. And we want to be kind of responsive to that landlord and reach back out to that client. And again, that comes through building strong relationships. Landlord meetings, and I say that's both individually, as a group, any opportunity that you can get landlords together. We have meetings annually where we consider our landlords a stakeholder, where we process, we hear their feedback and look for opportunities to improve. And then additionally, we started a new program that was out of our Homefull Solutions business line, where we incentivize cost-saving opportunities to private landlords. We actually turned this into a business opportunity. We were finding that landlords couldn't turn their units quick enough. These are a lot of mom and pop landlords that don't have an opportunity to have their own maintenance firms and so forth. And so for us, we've actually now turned this into a job training program for people. So we actually can go into a private landlord's, we quote the business and say we can actually turn a unit for a certain price, and then they pay us, and generally it's a cost savings to them. And one, we get job training for our folks, two, revenue into our programs, and third, we get to turn the unit fairly quick. And we turn it in regards to making sure that it's habitable and meets HQS and or habitability standards at the unit turn. So that's a really kind of creative, different way of incentivizing opportunities with landlords, and it's a great job training program. Next slide. So strategies to maintain housing, and I know I'm getting close to my time. You know, one of the things that we talk about, you know, again, when I said we want to house people first, but you cannot ignore the issue that you have to deal with, and AOD issues, mental health, those kinds of traditional kinds of stuff. So you kind of flip the switch. As I said, you've developed good, strong negotiation skills, and you're a houser, you're finding things, but then you also do have to provide those support services and recognize that. That also means you have to recognize the signs of things that are about to come up, so that you can preemptively engage with a client so that they don't return to homelessness. You know, there are many times people believe that the best services they got was in a shelter. We're actually trying to say, let's stay housed and we will link you to those services in your own home. And again, you know, we're not saying that we're a housing first organization. We're not saying that you must be clean and sober for us to house you. You must have income.
Tina, we're not hearing you very well. You're kind of cutting in and out.
Okay, so, thank you for letting me know. So those are key pieces, is, you know, the strategies.
No, we can't hear you.
You can't hear me at all now?
No, not as. Never mind. It must be my phone.
Okay, everybody else. All right, I'm going to keep talking then until you tell me different. All right, so employment services, that's the Homefull Solutions piece that I just said, where it's about jobs, it's about training, all of those kinds of things. We provide the linkages and partnerships. We actually have developed some really cool partnerships with employment agencies when we're truly trying to increase income. And additionally to that, there are jobs programs. You know, the workforce development is a key piece. And again, you know, I think employability is something that we tend to look and say, you know, even people who are on limited income with disability can actually do different types of jobs to add income and additional things, because we're talking about moving people to fair market rent, to where they're going to have to pay their own rent in a certain period of time. So we have to look at increasing income. And gone is the idea that everybody's going to get Social Security benefits and disability. You know, those things take a long time generally. Even with SOAR programs and some of those traditional benefits programs, it takes a while, and those are really not about generating enough income to where they're actually paying their own rents. And then we also really focus on tenancy support. How do you be a good tenant? How do you talk to the landlord? How do you pay your rent on time? Those kinds of things that, again, are critical. I mean, I think our rapid rehousing case managers are continuously saying, are you paying your rent on time? Where's your rent? Those kinds of discussions. And how do you talk to the landlord when you're going to be late on your rent? Those kinds of things are really, really kind of the first time that people have actually heard the understanding of your rights and the expectation to be good neighbors and those kinds of things. And then obviously for us it's also about making sure that there's a strong community support. And I say this in that that traditional and non-traditional, like community support, we're going to link them to all of the benefits that they're possibly eligible for. You know, that's probably already been done while they were in the gateways or shelters. But then some of those non-traditional supports are really critical, and those are like, there's churches, there's meal sites, there's neighbors, all of the things that I think we probably didn't place a lot of value on adding. And you know, we've really started to say, this is where you're going to live, this is your community, this is the folks that you're going to gather your support from, so that we can truly walk away knowing that they're supported in this kind of traditional way. Next slide. All right, I think I finished on time.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tina. I'm sorry about the technology issues. Apparently they're all on my end. So now I'm going to turn it over to Ben Cattell-Knoll from Friendship Place. He's going to start the next portion of our presentation. Ben, are you there?
Awesome. Thanks, Jen. Yeah, we're here. All right, well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ben Cattell-Knoll, and I am the Assistant Director of the Veteran Services Division at Friendship Place in Washington, D.C. So Friendship Place, as you may know, has been providing a variety of services to people experiencing and at risk of homelessness in our nation's capital for over 25 years. So that includes a day center, employment services, permanent supportive housing, and rapid rehousing services. So our Veterans First program, which we are representing here today on the call, provides rapid rehousing and homelessness prevention services to veterans in the D.C. metro region through the Supportive Services for Veteran Families, or SVF, grant through the Department of Veterans Affairs. So I'm glad to join you today, along with 4 of my awesome colleagues, to talk about how we use rapid rehousing to successfully assist households with no income. So obviously this is a hot topic, as a lot of you have joined us today on the webinar. And I'll say that when we first started doing rapid rehousing with veterans back in 2011 at the launch of the SSVF program, we had some hesitancy about working with people who didn't have income at program entry. And we asked ourselves questions that you all may be asking yourselves today. You know, how can participants succeed in a short-term intervention with only a moderate level of supportive services, and when they present with such high barriers to entering and maintaining housing? So Jen, if you can hit the next slide. If we fast forward to today, in our last fiscal year, which just ended, fiscal year 2016, 46%, almost half of our rapid rehousing participants did not have income when they entered our program. Yet, despite this challenge, and despite being in a very high rent and very low vacancy market like DC, 86% of these households with no income exited our program to permanent housing, as compared with 87% of all households exiting our program. So there were not significant differences in terms of outcomes from our program. This seems to be true beyond just our programming as well. A study that was done by the VA using SSVF data from across the country showed some further promise in terms of maintaining housing. It found that households with no income at program entry were not statistically more likely to return to homelessness following services than were households at other income levels. So these are brief data points that you heard some from Tina and Homefull as well, and they start to demonstrate that this can be done, that households entering your program with no income can be successfully housed, and they can stay housed with rapid rehousing. Obviously, this is not easy work, but as all of you on the call doing this know, our work is never easy. So at Friendship Place, we are able to successfully serve our households with no income by providing pretty much the same services that we provide to all households that we work with, but maybe just adjusted a bit to a more intense level based on the need. So it takes a dedicated team to pull this off, and so that's why I'm thrilled to have a few of our key players here with me today on the call, who you'll be hearing from shortly. So you'll be hearing from our housing specialist, Melissa Robinson, our employment specialist, Sarah LaRue, our legal and benefits specialist, Sam Strike, and one of our case managers, Nisha Bashisht. So these folks are the experts. They're the people on the ground doing the work every day. And so without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to them to expand on how they do this.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. This is Melissa Robinson. I'm the housing specialist here at Veterans First, and I know that everyone is listening to see if there's some magic formula to getting landlords to rent to our zero-income participants. Unfortunately, I don't have that magic formula, and I know that many of us are still working on it, though. I do want to emphasize that when working with landlords to foster a partnership, we must be okay with landlords saying no, because we have to understand that our programs may not work for every landlord and the criteria that they're looking for. And we have to be okay with that our program doesn't work for everyone, because we do know that it works for many. So my focus today will be on the efforts associated with landlord recruitment and engagement. Here are my tips and suggestions when it comes to getting landlords. It's the messaging, it's the message's consistency and transparency, it's the networking, and it's maintaining a landlord database. First, speak their language. It's important that staff are cognizant that landlords are business-oriented and that the language of social services may be unfamiliar to them. Landlords are interested in knowing how the rent is going to get paid and that their property will be taken care of. We all know that we cannot guarantee that our participants won't default on rent in the future or won't cause damage to their property. But you can promote the services of your program. That is, that you will support educating and guiding tenants and having a good tenancy. When talking with a landlord, use descriptive language in such ways that we offer these supports and not just say that we provide case management. Tell them what action items that the program can offer. For example, we offer landlord-tenant mediation. We make rental payments directly to the landlord. We connect tenants to community resources that will support them in maintaining their lease. We complete a budget with tenants to ensure rent payments are made on time. Next, I want you to have a uniform approach. It's important for all staff within your organization to be on the same accord. All staff across the organization should understand the parameters of what services are available. When staff are able to relay the same messaging, it's consistent and transparent tone for both landlords and participants. Having consistency and transparency will build confidence in the program and that it's operating in an effective and efficient capacity. Furthermore, landlords are a part of a larger network and will either refer or defer your program. So it's important for you to be seen as a reputable program in your community. For example, in our division, we have about 25 staff members, and we strive to ensure that at any point, if a landlord interacts with our staff, that they will get the same message. This is helpful, especially when a potential landlord is calling for information, and staff are able to promote our program in a clear and consistent message. Next, seize the moment. That looks like passing out business cards and networking when the opportunity presents itself. That means looking for opportunities to mingle with landlords and property managers. Sell your program as an opportunity for landlords to fill their vacancies and offer them to list their properties within your organization so that they may be connected with qualified applicants and candidates. It's about building rapport and relationships in the community. And lastly, make sure that someone is storing the information on all potential past and present landlords and their units. Find a way to track new units that come online for staff to see and to reach out to. Tracking can be done in a simple way as an Excel spreadsheet that can be shared with staff, or in a series, staff can access this database when they are looking for a place for their participants. It's important that someone is maintaining these relationships with all your landlords. And this can be done by occasionally checking in with them. They can be checking in on a follow-up of a recent person that was housed with them, or they can be checking in to see if there are new vacancies. Or you could be sending out email blasts wishing them happy holidays, and then also extending invites to landlords for upcoming organization events and fundraisers. So with that being said, I would like to pass this along to Sarah LaRue, our employment specialist.
Hi everyone, I'm Sarah. I'm a rehabilitation counselor and employment specialist with Veterans First. As we all know, employment has the potential to not only provide much-needed income, but is a source of self-esteem, growth, contribution, and socialization. This makes employment for participants of rapid rehousing programs with zero income all the more important and sometimes all the more elusive. So, some strategies. Acceptance and action. We meet with clients and we learn about them, we see their potential and how close they may be to a sustainable career, or at least a source of income. We can collaborate with them to make a plan, and we're ready to hit the ground running. We can offer resume assistance, employer connections, and support for all of the ingredients for successful employment. Now what? Client action really becomes the pivotal element. This means that we can provide as much client-centered planning, support, and opportunity as possible, but career achievement will only happen when the client is ready to take steps. Therefore, client-centeredness in action and honestly assessing client motivation are key. These can be challenging as they involve letting go of ideas and plans and accepting where the client is in the moment. The planning aspect is important, as clients talking about what they want to be doing toward employment and setting goals for themselves helps us understand their aspirations and guide our support and helps us get to know our clients better. However, client actions tell us more about where they are and how we can help them the most. If we are able to let go of the plan enough to hear the client with empathy, we can offer support that fits their current and often rapidly changing situation, even if it involves less support than we intend to provide. So clients with zero income may have even more aspects of life in transition than other clients, which is why it's important to dance and not fight. If a client cancels appointments continuously or doesn't follow through on steps toward employment, our instinct might be to chase the client and reinforce the plan, knowing the importance of their obtaining income. While encouragement and follow-up are essential tools, it is important that we balance that with not fighting the client's actions, but aiming to understand them and offering support in ways they are ready to receive. This is the dance. To be a dance partner in this situation means being receptive to both leading and following. We cannot control outcomes for our clients, but we can increase the likelihood of their success by attending to the client and working with, not against, their existing framework. The pursuit of employment involves a combination of consistency, confidence, and luck, some or all of which may be difficult concepts for someone transitioning out of homeless with zero income. This doesn't have to point to failure for the client, but may point to other factors that need to be addressed and sources and ways that we can be of extra support. The vast majority of employment achievement is an active and personal process. It belongs to the client, and we are there for temporary support, guidance, and access. One step on the path. So during a rapid rehousing program, we have the chance to witness and support one snapshot on our client's career path. This means that time is of the essence, and also that we may not be able to provide the entire range or even be present for the entire range of support the client needs for employment success, especially for those with significant employment barriers. In order to help clients engage rapidly, I recommend maximizing every encounter with clients by offering direct action, such as resume review, as early as the first meeting. Even if a client does not end up engaging with our specific employment services, we help fill in the gaps by using our knowledge of community resources to provide personalized referrals. This way, even when we aren't directly seeing success for our clients, we are equipped to help them see hope and opportunity in the long term. Balancing direct service with community support is a necessity for provider self-care as well as for client success. We are not the only stop on their career path, but we can be a pivotal one. And finally, seeing the whole picture. It is of utmost importance to take a step back and an honest look at the whole picture of the client, their demonstrated capabilities and lifestyle in relation to their goals. Why do they have zero income? How long have they had zero income? If they have a significant employment gap or change in capability since their last job, do they need to apply for disability to manage their mental and physical health in different ways? When in transition, as our clients with zero income are, sometimes the most benefit we can provide is to help them gain insight into their options for income and help them equip themselves to pursue an empowering and sustainable way of obtaining income. To discuss benefits as a substitute or supplement to employment, here's Sam.
Thank you, Sarah. Good afternoon. I'm Sam Strike, and I'm the Legal and Benefits Specialist. When one of our case managers has a program participant who has a disability or is otherwise unable to work, they'll refer that person over to me. Most of what I do is in the realm of veterans benefits, but I'll also assist with some civil legal services and public benefits. Public benefit for those unable to work is Social Security. Exactly what type of Social Security you get depends on whether or not you've worked enough to meet certain requirements. Generally, a worker who banks 40 or more qualifying working quarters and gains 10 years of regular work in which they pay their Social Security taxes, and then becomes disabled, can be eligible for SSDI, Social Security Disability Insurance, often just called disability. SSDI payments follow the same calculation as your Social Security retirement, so it will be the same amount as your eventual retirement payment. If a person is disabled and does not have enough working quarters, they will still be eligible for Supplemental Security Income, or SSI. This program follows the same medical determination process, but pays a set amount of $735 a month. To receive either payment, Social Security is going to want to see proof that the applicant cannot work. So it's important to pull together a coherent set of medical records. But it's also useful to document continuing job applications and attempts to work. It's not always going to be obvious from just the medical record that the person's condition prevents them from working. So it's important to establish that they're trying to work but can't. The best thing you can do to help your program participants access Social Security benefits is to get connected with a local SOAR program. SOAR stands for SSI-SSDI, Outreach, Access, and Recovery, and it's a program run by SAMHSA to help local jurisdictions expedite Social Security applications for disabled adults who are experiencing or at risk of homelessness. SOAR has a great online training, but also runs a National Technical Assistance Center with staff who can help local leads work directly with their Social Security offices to set up a streamlined process for those applications. SOAR is invaluable in reducing decision times and getting benefits to our participants faster. The average Social Security application takes about a year, and without assistance, only 10 to 15% of people who are homeless are approved on their initial application. Nationwide, SOAR programs have assisted thousands of people with their applications, and in 2016, averaged a 67% success rate, with a decision in an average of 101 days. So go to the website listed on the slide and get connected to SOAR. Since it's most of what I do, I also wanted to briefly mention veterans benefits. There are two main cash benefits available: service-connected disability compensation, which is awarded to veterans who have a condition that was caused by an event in service and is paid on a sliding rating scale, and the low-income or wartime pension, which functions much like SSI, but at a rate of $1,076 a month and requires that at least one day of the veteran's service was active duty during a recognized wartime period. My last piece of advice for you would be to get to know your specific jurisdiction. Each jurisdiction has its own rules and idiosyncrasies, and if at all possible, you're going to want to get to know an actual person at the office that your participant needs to access. This human connection is a large part of why SOAR is so successful, and it's been invaluable for our work in the Department of Veteran Affairs. I'll turn it over to our case manager, Nisha, to wrap it up.
Hi, my name is Nisha, and I'm a case manager here at Friendship Place. My colleagues do an awesome job of setting up our zero-income participants for success, but there will inevitably be a host of other things out there that our participants will need that we can't provide in-house. For zero-income participants, this is particularly true. They may need resources for their most basic needs: food, clothing, showers, laundry, transportation, etc. And this is where a case manager can fill in those gaps. The first step is knowing the resources in your community. As part of our training for new staff members, we plan an all-day scavenger hunt for them to visit the most used resources in the community. Our case managers and intake specialists are encouraged to continue going out into the community to check out new resources and refresh themselves on old ones. Every few months, I'll schedule a day with other case managers to do just this. Knowing the resources is key. And it's important to not just be familiar with resources in your community, but to also know the specifics of them. When you visit or call these organizations, ask follow-up questions. Do you need a referral letter to access the resource? What are the hours of operation? Is there a specific person the participant should ask for? If you live in a city or town where the resources are less available, check with local churches and religious groups to see if they are doing anything that might be useful to your participants. The more resources you know well, the easier it is going to be to quickly and seamlessly connect your participants. So that's the first step, is knowing your resources. And then the next step is connecting your participants to the right ones. From the very first meeting with them, you want to be asking your participants what they need. Do they have a place to shower? How do they get food? How are they getting around? If there are gaps you can fill immediately, you want to go ahead and do that. Make sure you are connecting them to the right resources and with as much information as possible. If you can, go with them to check out the resources. Typically, the participant will feel more comfortable accessing resources if you are there the first time. If you can't go with them or they want to do it on their own, make sure they have all of the necessary details. Give them the hours of operation, what they'll need to bring, like their ID, income statements, a referral letter if necessary, and how often they can access the resource. You want to avoid sending your participants to organizations with resources that they are not eligible for. For example, you don't want to send a single male participant to an organization that only serves families. And this goes back to the better you know the resources beforehand, the easier it's going to be to connect them with the right organizations. As you continue to work with your participants, you can connect them with more resources. Maybe now that they have found resources that meet their more basic needs, they're interested in other things: credit counseling, free computers, GED classes, etc. The more resources you can give them, the less dependent they will feel on the program. So connecting your zero-income participants achieves the intended goal of helping them meet their needs, but it also helps them feel more empowered. And lastly, the most important thing to do with each of your participants is make sure they're on board with the mission. Like Tina from Homefull said, often you'll have zero-income participants who come in and want to increase their income before thinking about housing. If they don't believe in housing first, connecting them to housing and resources is going to be much more difficult. Building the rapport and trust necessary to get them on board should start immediately. At Friendship Place, we make a housing goal plan together where we map out 3 to 5 goals that they want to work on while in the program. Ideally, you want these goals to be driven by your participants. This will help you get a good idea of what direction they want to go in and help them see how your program can meet their goals. If their main goal is employment, explain how permanent housing will help them reach that goal. It's much easier to find a job when you can put down a permanent address on an application and when you're not worrying about where you're going to sleep at night. If they come in with 20 goals that they want to work on, you may need to help them prioritize these goals and determine which ones they want and need to work on first. If they are hesitant to access resources in the community, explain how these resources can help support them long after they are exited from your program. So if there's one thing that you take away from this as a case manager or anyone working with participants, it's that your job is to help them see how the housing first model and your program fits into their lives, not the other way around.
Alrighty, so that's how it's done, folks. Obviously, this is a rather quick overview of the kinds of supports that we provide to households with no income at program entry. So I'm sure you probably have more specific, in-depth questions about this, and our team is happy to answer any of those. So I think you all are seeing our contact information on the slide in front of you right now, but it's also probably a great time to kick it back to Jen and the Alliance to see what questions are coming in.
Well, thanks so much to all our great speakers today. We do have a lot of questions that have come in. I'm going to start off with one for both Tina and Friendship Place to address. How are you able to house people dependent on SSI for income in market rate housing? So I don't know if Tina wants to start.
Sure. Yeah, so I think for us, we're fortunate enough, excuse me, as I said before, our rents are are fairly reasonable. You know, the average rent was $685, and for us, Social Security benefits tend to be able to support that. And again, we're trying to add the additional stuff in terms of supplementing their income. And that's kind of the key piece to us figuring out is what's the level of income that they need in order to support rent. For a single person, you know, we're many times able to get closer to like the $450 per month for rents. So we're fortunate to be in that kind of market.
Great, thank you. Ben,
Hello.
please.
Oh, this is Melissa, the housing specialist.
Great.
My immediate answer is shared housing. We focus when somebody that has limited or fixed income, we figure out if they can inventory their own resources or their own supports and see if they can, you know, move into like a 2-bedroom apartment or something like that. Or in our market, I guess we're fortunate where there's a lot of room shares. And so we would look for that kind of housing situation for people with fixed income or low income.
Great, thank you. So this question is for Tina. How are people increasing their income, primarily employment for benefits, primarily employment or benefits or both? And what would the typical income increase look like?
Yeah, so for us, again, I don't know what's wrong with my voice now. Predominantly, the increase in income is really coming through employment more than the benefits, other than we are working hard to get non-cash benefits as quickly as we can, additionally for all of our participants. You know, again, as I said, some of the strategies that we've started to do is to work for building relationships with employment opportunities, and you know, we'd like to think that Dayton and Montgomery County is rebounding well from a recession, and there are employment opportunities. We've been creative in developing partnerships with other large entities and private employment agencies as well. We actually did a Building a Better Communities seminar last year, where we actually partnered with people in our community, and one of the panels was with all employment opportunities. And so for us, we're really developing a system of where does that person need to be placed, and really getting away from employment programs that are about training and are about resume building, and really trying to focus on immediate increasing income, and how do you learn or gain training stipends and those kinds of things while you're learning on the job. And so I think for us, again, expediency is one of the biggest things. It's got to be quick, and it might not be the last job you ever get, but it's the job that's right now needed to help support your income. You know, again, when I said we're moving people out of homelessness, sadly, we're not eliminating poverty. So many of our folks are still living in poverty and living paycheck to paycheck, and whatever that paycheck is, and prioritizing rent being first.
And to kind of piggyback off that, this is Sarah, the employment specialist with Veterans First. And I want to start by saying there's really no typical income increase. There's no typical participant. It's all so individualized and really based on the individual's experience, their capabilities, and their ability to respond to employment opportunities while in the midst of housing transition and possibly other crisis situations. And so our focus at Veterans First is to individualize the opportunities and provide as much variety of opportunity as possible. Now this can mean, you know, transportation to a hiring event. This can mean in-house hiring events. This can mean referral to HVRP services in downtown DC. So we try to reach the clients where they are, both, you know, in their lives and their careers, in order to help them return to work as quickly and sustainably as possible.
Thank you so much. So this question is for Friendship Place, but Tina, I'd definitely jump in if you wanted to add something. Do you have any tips for working with landlords and getting them comfortable renting to someone with zero income?
Hello, this is me, Melissa, the housing specialist. And so I think the rapport building is going to be the strong part in getting landlords comfortable. And also, if you can, first initially, meet them as a housing specialist or whatever the person in your agency that does the outreach to the landlords. You can meet with them, view the units as part of the rapport building, allowing them to have a face-to-face, and getting that going. And then what's going to be important is like when you present the applicant or the interested candidate. And I think Tina spoke about this, is like selling their strong points when you're presenting them, and then selling the program and how you're going to support that. And that you're not, and to add that you're not just supporting the tenant, but that you're also going to be a support to the landlord. I think that's important, and that they have someone they can call if there's a lease violation, because sometimes it's not just about rent, it's about noise complaint, or if there was something about smoking on the property or whatnot, that they can call the agency, the organization, and be able to get a response and feel supported in that, it's a partnership and that you are supporting both the landlord and the tenant, and that it's going to be a good tenancy. I think that's good, and like growing comfort with the landlord, like their rapport, and being a support to them as well.
And this is Tina. I would piggyback on that. I think that's an excellent idea. And I think the other key piece that I think it's important is educating landlords in general about homelessness. There are lots of misconceptions about what a homeless person looks like, what's the baggage they come with, and all of those kinds of things. So I think, while we're advocating for the individual client, and we want to do that because, that's who we're trying to work to get into housing. But I think as a collective whole, we have a responsibility to make sure people understand what homelessness is, how people become homeless, that it's not the stereotype of what people believe. These are people that are a lot like you or me, and they might have had something that have happened to them that has caused them to be there. But I think that's important, is to kind of break down those kind of stereotypes of homelessness in general.
Thank you so much. Okay, the next question is for both Friendship Place and Tina. Do you provide case management services after the financial assistance ends?
This is Tina. I'll jump in. Yes, most certainly. And that's kind of been one of the trial and errors of doing rapid rehousing for quite some time. I think we started even prior to the HPRP timeframe, is recognizing that that the financial assistance could have ended, but really we want to make sure that that transition in place is still occurring safely. We also want to be responsive to, and I think you guys just mentioned, being responsive to both the landlord and the client when that emergency crisis. What previously happened is that people believed they had to come back into homelessness in order to get services. And so for us, we want to keep that client housed, which means case management could go on depending on really the length of time that the client needs. So it's not like 3 months post financial assistance, we're going to close all clients. It really is, this client needs to be kept open. And we really look at individually what's in the best interest of that client.
Yeah, and this is Ben with Friendship Place. I would just sort of add, so we found that folks, for the most part in our program, on average, are getting housed within the first 1 to 2 months of working with us, and then services are going for typically an additional 2 to 4 months past that. At this point, for most people, we would be providing financial assistance for the majority of the duration of their participation in the program. But as has sort of been echoed by some of the other folks on my team, it really does vary from person to person in terms of their eligibility. I mean, we are taking on folks sometimes who have exhausted their financial assistance that's available through SSVF, and so sometimes we're just helping bridge that connection to another community support. Sometimes rapid rehousing is a first step towards a higher level of support if we find that rapid rehousing is not the right fit for that person, or if it's not working out for them. So I would say it really varies from person to person. For the most part, we are providing that financial assistance through the duration of services, but in some instances, case management would continue beyond financial assistance from our program. But honestly, really, more than anything, if that person does need ongoing case management supports, the ideal would be for us to connect them to those supports in the community outside of our program that can extend for months or years beyond our services.
Thank you so much. Another question for both of you. Some clients have other barriers or previous trauma and may benefit from time before going back to work and increasing their income. What do you do in those situations?
This is Sarah with Veterans First. Oh.
No, I was going to let you guys go first.
Go ahead, Tina.
No, go on.
Okay. So that's a really, really important and common situation. You know, people don't become homeless for no reason. Oftentimes there are significant barriers that come up, and we may, you know, receive clients in a point where they're not exactly able to focus on employment for these reasons, such as disability or family crisis, health crisis, or even financial crises that are taking their focus away from focusing on work. And so generally my approach is to acknowledge this, especially since many clients with these types of barriers that prevent them from actively seeking employment will still talk about and want to work on these plans, whereas this might in the moment take them away from focusing on the mental health or physical health or other aspects of their life. And how I try to phrase it with them is that by focusing on improving and maintaining their health, they're setting themselves up for more sustainable employment in the future. And so I do a mix of counseling them toward how to focus on attending to the barriers in their lives, preventing them from keeping employment or obtaining employment or looking for employment, combined with providing them with longer-term resources that they can access when they are at a point that they can work, or ways to modify employment like through benefits or long-term employment supports that are available to them once they receive their benefits. So I work with them on trying to help them see the longer scope and stay focused in the moment on how they can build that from a strong foundation.
Yeah, I think, you know, most certainly I agree with pretty much everything she said there. You know, one of the things we found, particularly with a lot of the family programs that rapid rehousing that we were doing, is that inevitably the head of household would get pregnant a few months into a program and would be on bed rest or any of that kind of stuff. So I think to also just highlight what Ben mentioned, I think in the earlier response, is continuously monitoring to make sure that this is the appropriate program for them. You know, because there are additionally, I think you know, we spoke about all of the different programs that my organization operates. We want to be mindful that they're appropriate. You know, how long is this interruption in going to be in terms of housing stability and being able to find employment and that kind of stuff. So I think you want to really kind of focus on, is this just a temporary kind of thing, or is this something that's really going to be a longer and you know, more duration, and then being appropriately referred to possibly a different program or one of longer duration and so forth. So I think that comes with you know, good support services and being able to pick up on the causes of what's really preventing them from employment and increasing their income and so forth. And then we also will look fairly quick. I have an excellent rapid rehousing manager, Nathan Greer. If he happens to be on the line, he can hear. He's a great manager of a program, but he is constantly evaluating with his staff, is this somebody that's appropriate, or is this something that needs what we call as a mid-level assessment that would potentially make sure that this person's appropriate for rapid rehousing and not something of more subsidized and long-term with intensive services. So again, I think that constant case management and monitoring, and then evaluation of whether that crisis or whatever it is that's prevented them is going to be for how long.
Thank you. Question again to both of you. Is it common, we're getting several questions about this, is it common to find households who are not seriously working to increase income and exit the subsidy? And if so, what do you do in those instances?
This is Tina. Again, I think, we do a pretty good job from the beginning of making clear what the expectations of this kind of program is. But yes, certainly there are folks that confuse the program for this is a permanent long-term subsidized program, and then aren't really working towards, the goals of the project. And to be fair, I think that used to be one of the major concerns of, oh, this person's not going to be successful in rapid rehousing. They're going to just be there long enough that the assistance lasts, and then they're going to be evicted. But in fact, we were finding that number is smaller and smaller. I think I gave a recidivism rate of about 12%. So while and again, I don't want to say that they're going to stay in the exact housing that we might have placed them in originally, but a large percentage of them become very resourceful when push comes to shove and they're about to be evicted and don't come back to the shelters. And so for us, again, we want to make sure that we're still having a positive relationship with the landlord, that that they didn't end up having to evict the person and spend more money. But again, I think that being very clear up front and ongoing with what the expectations are, that that the reality is I'm not just threatening that our assistance ends at this kind of point. This is the program. It is a temporary assistance, and the reality is that's the expectation. And again, with a low recidivism rate that we're seeing, then people are getting the point. So I think that we overthought that was something that was going to happen a lot more than it inevitably did.
Hey, this is Nisha. I'm the case manager at Friendship Place, and I definitely want to echo everything that Tina just said. You really want to be clear about the program expectations, and the first thing that we have participants do when they come in for an intake is we sit down and we go over some of our programmatic rules. This is how engaged we expect you to be. This is how much we want to be meeting with you. This is the goals that we're looking to do, and a lot of that is participant driven, and some of it is program driven. So yeah, I think, like Tina said, being really upfront about what the program goals are, and then if you start seeing a participant disengage, or if they're disengaged from the beginning, really getting down to the bottom of what the reason for that is. Because some of it could be a lack of motivation. Some of it could be being in a depressive state. It could be that they have a lot of family responsibilities, and so getting to the source of that problem and figuring out how to best support them, I think, is really important. And for participants whose gut reaction is to start disengaging when things get tough, that can be really difficult. It can be really difficult to tear down some of those barriers, but that's part of the program's responsibility, is to get to the bottom of some of those problems so that we can best help them before exiting. So I know that there are times when I haven't spoken to someone in a month. I will go to their house, I will leave letters, I will call their emergency contact. I want to make sure that they are okay before we leave them.
And this is Ben. I would just tag on real quickly as well that we spend a significant amount of time with our case managers as they come on board. in terms of training, making opportunities available for trauma-informed care training, for harm reduction training, and specifically for this case, I think, for motivational interviewing training. So I think having a really highly skilled team is crucial for addressing that particular concern, and in particular, I think motivational interviewing, helping staff see how they can help call out that motivation from within people, because folks have taken the step of connecting with our program. So at some level, there's a desire to seek housing, to seek something better for themselves, to move forward. And so motivational interviewing helps equip our staff with the skills to help draw that out of people.
Thank you. So as always, we're getting a lot of questions about landlord engagement, and one of them is asking about tips for working with corporate landlords. I don't know if one or both of you wants to tackle that question.
Ben, you want to?
Okay. Oh, I'm like, this is Melissa. I guess I could chime in here about working with corporate property management companies. For us, and there's a lot of, I guess, my approach is that you're going to have a lot of maybe barriers because there's a macro level standard that's set, and breaking that down can be difficult. So that the importance then is to get to know like the site property managers and building that relationship with them and finding out what the loopholes are when you have an applicant that may have bad credit history, or how you can get them to get around having a minimum income requirement, and that's a key, getting to know which corporate or property management companies have relaxed the minimum income requirement, so that if you're able to say, hey, we can, guarantee this piece to show that you have some income in place, they maybe can push for approval. But it's definitely, I go back to like the networking and rapport building, and then meeting with them consistently so that within their team, the property manager they're going to send a message up to like corporate, hey, they have this going on, and see if they can take on a mission within their own company or their site to, hey, we can do this for this community. We're going to partner with them to give back, like a giving back effort within their corporation. So it's just, getting your name out there, getting what your effort is out there, getting known, and then, becoming like a topic of conversation and seeing if some doors can be opened that way. But yeah, I would definitely say like the networking and rapport building.
I'm going to jump in on this one too, actually. This applies to all landlords, but especially with like large corporate management companies. Make sure that you know your rights and calmly insist on your rights. Just because they're like a large corporation with a lot of policies doesn't mean that they know all the laws or are going to follow every law exactly every time. So make sure that you're doing everything that you can to advocate for your participants. And you can always even ask for exceptions to management policies if the management company has policies that you can convince them to waive in this one case through your advocacy.
Thank you. A question for both. Do you collect participant feedback, and how do you measure success? I know Tina talked a bit about recidivism, so if you could tackle that question, that'd be great.
So yes, we do. We do client satisfaction surveys 2 times per year, and actually we have a pretty good response rate. It's in the 80%, I think. So we're always asking for what is it that we could do better? What is it that that the program or the project is lacking? And that's from, and remember, I think I highlighted that we actually felt like we have 2 customers. One is that landlord, the other is our client. But from the client's perspective, certainly, and again, their issues, which is really how Homefull Solutions came to be, was that they needed jobs and they needed jobs immediately. And those traditional work programs many times require an investment of time that's pretty long before they actually got money in their pockets. And so one of the things was that they really kind of hammered home in all of our stakeholder meetings and feedback groups was we need real programs. And so we kind of took that, created our new division, and then we actually took that further and started meeting with some of the other traditional employment programs saying, people need jobs right away and not a very long process, and if there's a training program, can it be a paid training program? So obviously the regular HUD kind of outcomes, the exits to permanent housing, the recidivism rates, increasing the income, those are the things that are probably most regularly measured in terms of success. Again, that return to homelessness is a big piece of it, and even the the post, for the 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12, all the way to post 24 months. And additionally, as a system, I think if we're looking at reducing recidivism in a rapid rehousing program that is serving, close to 400 persons, then you're also reducing the number of people that are becoming homeless, either new or returning. So I think it certainly has lots of measurements to look at success, and that's both from a system performance, from an agency performance, and then from the client is we have had people in our rapid rehousing programs that says this is the longest I've ever been housed. I can't remember living in a place this nice, and those kinds of things, and that's kind of that anecdotal stuff that makes you feel like all that other stuff is worth it. So that's kind of how we measure that success. From a landlord perspective, we don't want to burn bridges with landlords, and so we actually asked for a lot of feedback, and they wanted to hear more information up front on the program, understanding where we stop and a client starts, when will they receive rents, those kinds of things. So we developed more communication tools to make sure that our landlords are educated on the process, the program, and so forth. So we are continuously monitoring, evaluating, and improving our rapid rehousing program.
Yeah, and this is Ben with Friendship Place. To tag on to that, we've definitely really appreciated the benchmarks and standards that the Alliance has come out with in some of the tools you've developed. So we've looked at 3 key outcomes in terms of measuring success: the number of days to housing to make sure we're doing it rapidly, the percentage of people who are exiting to permanent housing to make sure that we're effective, and then the returns to homelessness to sort of see if it's being effective over the long term. So those are all data points that we're trying to look at regularly, which help us determine whether or not we're being successful. To the question of participant satisfaction, that's definitely something that we really value a lot as well. So we seek several ways to get input from participants who have exited the program. During our sort of exit process, our exit interview, we sit down and we talk through what goals the participant accomplished and what they still would like to accomplish, so we can make some sort of final referrals and connections. And then within 30 days of exit, we follow up with a survey that we're required to send out from the VA. And then about 3 months after exit, we follow up with just another brief survey. So as we get further and further away from services, the response rate goes down quite a bit. So particularly in some of those later times where we ask for feedback, the response rate's rather low. But we do get some really good feedback from participants during that exit interview, and it's informed the way that we provide services. I would also just add that we do a landlord satisfaction survey as well, and I would really recommend implementing that to your programs. It gives you some really fascinating feedback in terms of the landlord concerns and what the landlords like about the program. And for us, one of the things we really learned was even from landlords who would sometimes give us negative feedback, who had a bad experience with a particular client, when asked if they would recommend working with us to another provider or whether they would work with us again, the vast, vast majority said that they definitely would. So some of that concern about like, oh, we're burning bridges with landlords if it doesn't work out with somebody was actually not borne out when we heard from the landlords directly. So that was a fascinating insight from them.
Thank you so much. So we have time for 2 more very quick questions. This first one is for Ben, and you've already touched on this, but can you talk again about how you're serving people on fixed income in this high-cost housing market in D.C. and how that works?
Yeah, I'd underline again what Melissa talked about in terms of shared housing, and a plug. I think that our President and CEO, Jean-Michel, was on a webinar with the Alliance a couple months back about shared housing. I think being creative and looking for what are the low-cost solutions. I think it also ties a little bit into what our employment specialist, Sarah, talked about in terms of thinking about housing as, we're not necessarily finding the housing that you have to stay in for the rest of your life or even for the next 2 or 3 years. This may be a stepping stone. It may be a first step. And that's well documented in DC. I mean, I think of all of us who you heard talk on the call today, I think when we first moved into DC, probably all of us lived in or are still living in like group housing situations. It's the culture around here, and it's a way to save money in a really, really high cost area. So I think that shared housing is one option.
Thanks so much. So the final question is for both of, oh, I'm sorry.
This is Melissa, the housing specialist, and I just want to mention that we may be in an area where this answering the question you were asking, that this may be an area where there's transportation available that sometimes moving outside the city limits can accommodate your fixed income or low income, and so we would look into that and see if there's like a way that they can find a cheaper rent or low cost rent, and then their commute is, beyond like just walking outside and catching a bus, but they may have to like catch the metro and into the city to work or finding somewhere that's closer to work. But that is something that we also explore is like, what is your compromise in like where you want to live? Could you move further out from the city and get a lower rent cost? So that is something that we also explore.
Thank you. So last quick question. What tips or advice would you give to people who are just getting started with rapid rehousing? And this for both.
I would probably say is understanding the program and that it is certainly a tool for many folks. Again, I think for the fact that we're talking about housing people with zero incomes is indicative of that this is a program that can be very successful. I also think it's important that there's not a one-size-fits-all for everybody. That a lot of times when you try to make your program into this perfect box, that's very hard to do, because particularly how quickly somebody becomes resourceful or increases their incomes is very independent upon themselves, and when you set up a program that's very rigid, it's very hard to be able to be responsive to that. And I think that everything we said today about building relationships with employment, benefits brokers, landlords, all of those things are really laying the groundwork to a program being successful. And then making sure that all of those expectations are communicated and clearly transparent to the person that you're serving as well. And create that sense of a housing first approach in your system is probably one of the key pieces to making sure that people recognize that housing is the first option and not the last option.
Yeah, and I would just tag on, just do it. Just dive in. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. As Tina pointed out in her slide, in naming who Homefull is doing rapid rehousing for, and I think the same is true for Friendship Place, it's basically everybody. we don't have a lot of information on who rapid rehousing does not work for. We've seen it work for veterans. We've seen it work for families. We've seen it work for individuals. We've seen it work for people with no income and for people who are chronically homeless, and the list could go on. So I don't think there's much that I've seen that it doesn't work for. There will be folks perhaps along the way that need more supports or different kinds of supports. But in terms of predicting success or failure, I haven't seen much either. We've seen all different kinds of people have success with rapid rehousing, so I think the encouragement would be to dive in and give it a shot.
Great. Well, thank you so much to our amazing speakers. I just wanted to point out some of the resources we have on our website and homelessness.org. We also have it's not listed here, oh it is, the Rapid Rehousing Performance Benchmarks and Standards. It's a very important resource that we have on our website, so I really encourage you to take a look. And I also want to let you know that we have a rapid rehousing webinar series that we like to do monthly. We also have a newsletter, so please sign up at our website. Thank you so much for joining us, and thanks again to the speakers. Have a great day.